Alright, so in today's video I've got a match of me playing Sky Striker versus Swordsoul deck, and this was my rank up match from Platinum 1 rank to Diamond V rank. Now a couple of things before we go ahead and get into the match replay. First of all, Swordsoul is a very powerful deck right now. It's considered by some to be the new strongest deck in the format, surpassing Tri-Brigade Zodiac. I'm not sure what my opinion is on that. I think that they're both about even. I don't think that Swordsoul has quite proven itself to be a stronger deck than Tri-Brigade Zodiac, but it is very popular on the ladder, and you should expect to see it very often. It is very strong, easily one of the strongest decks. If it's not the strongest outright, it's very likely that it's top 2. But in any case, the next thing I wanted to bring up is that, as you can tell, I'm going first, and that's pretty problematic for a Sky Striker deck because for two reasons. One, Sky Strikers prefer to go second and are usually built to go second, and two, if you're in Platinum or Diamond rank or somewhere up there and your opponent voluntarily chooses for you to go first, which was the case here because I lost the coin toss, then you need to be ready to put out a full board of negates and stuff like that, because it's very likely that your opponent is going to be running a bunch of hand traps or Dark Wheeler No More and Forbidden Droplet to break through your board and try to push for game. And unfortunately, Sky Striker doesn't have a lot of defensive options on turn 1 unless you're playing a dedicated turn 1 Sky Striker deck. Like if you look here, I already have an above average hand going first for defense. Like, it's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but I can at least have a better option than normal summon Ray, get out Shizuku, and set Widow Anchor, because we have Infinite Impermanence and we have Effect Veiler, so we have a couple more negates, and that should help us survive to turn 3, maybe. It depends on how well my opponent opens here. So let's go ahead and get into the match. Now, there was delay really early on in the match, so I knew right away that my opponent has Max C. Like, there's probably like a 99% chance that my opponent is running Max C and they have it in their opening hand. So instead of normal summoning Rose and committing to that play, I decided to activate Sky Striker Mobilize Engage first and to kind of feel things out. Oh yeah, another thing really quick is I wanted to mention is that it's pretty clear that my audience prefers my replays to be in this format, where instead of doing no commentary, I provide in-depth analysis on the choices that I did in the match. So we're going to continue using that format for the foreseeable future. So I activate Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. My opponent activates Ash Blossom, unfortunately for us. So we're kind of in trouble here. But my opponent decides to chain Max C here. And this is probably a smart play because you want to activate Max C early against Sky Strikers. And he's expecting me to have a Ray in the hand, but fortunately and unfortunately for us, we don't. So my engage is negated, and I just decide to pass turn because it's safer to pass turn here than to set my back row, because he chose to go second, so it's very likely he has like Lightning Storm or Harpy's Feather Duster or something like that. So instead of setting any back row, I decide to keep the Infinite Impermanence in my hand to keep it safe. I keep the Shark Cannon in my hand because it's pretty useless right now. All we can banish is a Max C and a Ash Blossom, which doesn't do anything to our opponent. And we want to try to keep the Rose in our hand for plays on turn 3, because we can make a Shizuku and search another Sky Striker card, but our Shizuku will have no protection because we don't have a Ray in the graveyard, so it's better to keep our Rose in the hand for future plays. Okay, so now it's my opponent's turn. They go ahead and they activate Swordsoul Emergence, so they add a Moye to the hand. They go ahead and do the standard Swordsoul plays. They reveal a Swordsoul Sacred Summit, which allows them to Monster Reborn a card from their graveyard. Now we use Effect Veiler on Moye to try to slow his turn down and maybe try to feel out a Call by the Grave if they have it. They don't have a Call by the Grave, so we successfully stop the Moye. And he decides to just swing for 1700 and pass turn. So we know that he has a Sacred Summon in the hand, and he might have some hand traps, I don't know, but it's pretty likely, basically guaranteed that he doesn't have Call by the Grave, because he probably would have set that here if he had it, or he would have used it on Effect Failure. So go ahead and play our turn. Neither of us were really able to make an effective play on our first turn. So our normal summon Rose, going to Hayate. And I decide to swing. I don't use Afterburners on Moye because in case he has Siphon Gear Gamma. So we want to keep a monster out on his field to play around that. Okay, so we swing with Hayate, we send a Ray to the graveyard so that we have protection for our Sky Striker Link monster in the extra monster zone. We go into Shizuku. And now we Afterburners his Moye just to get that off the field. So we go ahead and set 2. And we go ahead and search out a Hornet Drones. Now it took me a while to figure out what I wanted to get here. I decided to get a Hornet Drones because if we got like a Widow Anchor or something, we wouldn't be able to use it to protect ourselves this turn anyway, and multi-roll wouldn't have done anything for us either. So I decided to just go for Hornet Drones in case he really devastates our board and he's able to push through his Shizuku 2 back row and Ray and Rose in the graveyard. We're still able to make a play next turn without using our normal summon. Okay, so my opponent activates Lightning Storm as expected, and it's not really that surprising that a player that voluntarily chose to go second activates Lightning Storm. It's just unfortunate for us. Because you can't just play assuming that your opponent has Lightning Storm. You have to set your back row here because the impermanence would have been dead in my hand anyway because I already have a monster out in the field, so we just have to play into our opponent's out and ask our opponent the question, do they have the out? And in this case he did have the out, so there's nothing that we can do about it. But what we can do is we can activate Sharkin in response to get rid of his Moye so he can't use his Swordsoul Sacred Summit. So that's all we can do, just try and do that and try to slow him down as much as possible. So we get the Moye out of the graveyard, he takes out our impermanence, unfortunately. And he had the second Moye, and there's nothing we could do about that because he got rid of our impermanence. He reveals the Sacred Summit, summons a token. Then he gets out Qixiao, and activates Moye and Qixiao. So he gets to draw a card, and then he gets to add a Swordsoul card to his hand. So he decides to banish the Blackout, so he gets out another token. And he needed that to make another level 8 Synchro play. So he activates Summit, gets out his second Moye. Then he goes into Draco Berserker the Tenyi. And then he activates Raigeki from his hand. So he pops our Shizuku. Now we had the prompt to use Ray, but we decided not to use the Ray because his Draco Berserker the Tenyi reads, when your opponent activates a monster's effect, quick effect, you can banish it. So he wouldn't be able to special summon our Ray anyway because it would just get banished. So we decided to keep it safe in the graveyard for now and hope that we can make some plays next turn. So he goes ahead and swings for 58, so we're down to 500. And we're in pretty dire straits here. There's very little we can do. We have to hope that this isn't a hand trap, and we have to hope that we top deck really well because he has an anti-Ray negate, and he has another negate that we can use to, or that he can use to stop our effect monsters. Okay, so we top decked Pot of Avarice, which is a fantastic top deck, but even with that, it doesn't do a whole lot here because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like if we use Pot of Avarice now, we get rid of all this stuff in our graveyard, so our Ray and our Rose that were in the graveyard are gone. So we don't have any protection for our Link monsters anymore. So we have to make some weird play with Hornet Drones first. So we decide to use Hornet Drones. We go ahead and go into Kaina. And we use Kaina's effect on Draco Berserker the Tenyi. We just try to, bait out a negate somehow because we're dead anyway, so we might as well just try to prevent one of his monsters from attacking. So luckily for us, our opponent does fall for the bait. He uses the Qixiao to stop our Kaina. And that's good for us because now it means that we can try to use some of our other effects to try and mount a comeback here. So we get rid of Kaina, go into Kagari. and we add the engage back to the hand. Now he cannot negate this unless he has like effect Veiler, something like that. But he does get rid of our Kagari. That was a risk that we had to take. We have to make him get rid of our Kagari, because otherwise we're just gambling on Pot of Avarice drawing into a Widow Anchor or something. And that was not a gamble that I was willing to make here. So we add the engage to the hand. And him banishing our Kagari means it leaves the field, so we get to special summon our Ray. So now we use Pot of Avarice because we have these monsters in the graveyard, so now it's time to gamble. And then hopefully we'll get some sort of Sky Striker card, and then we'll use Sky Striker Mobilize Engage to get another card that we need. So we add those back to the hand, and we get a Rose and a Monster Reborn, which is very good. That's pretty much exactly what we need here. So we decide to Monster Reborn, we get out a Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring from his graveyard, and then we go to Access Code. And obviously you go into Access Code, we have to do the Crystron Hakufibrax Celine line first. We were doing this assuming that he didn't have a hand trap, like maybe he had Nibiru or something, but he didn't have any hand traps in this instance, so we were able to mount a comeback here. So there's the Access Code Talker. And we have exactly 2 Link monsters in the graveyard, because the rest were returned with Pot of Avarice, so we activate Access Code, get rid of Hakufibrax and get rid of Celine to pop his 2 monsters on the field. Then we activate Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, we grab a Widow Anchor to maximize our safety for next turn in case something happens. And we also get an Impermanence, which is great. We get out our Rose. And we were about to Link Summon into Hayate to go ahead and try to swing for game, but that would have been game because he surrendered, so he didn't have any hand traps to stop us. So that was a really tough game. I mean, we were behind pretty much the entire game. We went first, we lost a coin flip, and it was an awful situation to be in. But we still managed to, you know, grit our teeth and get through it, and we won the match. So sometimes, even if you're in really dire situations and you're feeling like you're not able to win, sometimes you just gotta believe in the heart of the cards, and sometimes the heart of the cards pull through like they did in this match. So that was a tough match, but we managed to win, and we managed to rank up to Diamond V. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was an enjoyable match for me. I mean, obviously it was because I won, but it was a tough match, and it was enjoyable to be able to see our deck come through for us and get us the cards that we needed to mount a comeback. So I will see you guys in the next video.